Yes, and now we have the recording that has just started as well. I'm going to just set up my participant screen so I can admit everyone as I see them coming in. Thank you everybody who's joined already. It's yet another one of our catch-ups, and obviously this time it is something that is not just a gut-wrenching real topic, but also coming from somebody who's worked for years in the space. It's a pleasure and honor to have Madhavi Kukreja with us. Give us a couple of minutes, Madhaviji. We will wait for more people to join because I know there are a lot of people who are interested in this session and wanting to join. Just give us a moment. Also today I'm playing both admin and host. So just give us a moment. Yes. Welcome everybody as you log in. Give us a couple of minutes and I'm going to request everybody to go on mute as we allow for more people to join us. If we can have everybody go on mute and yes. Request to everybody, you can view and you can of course interact and post questions and everything. Also, please stay on. We've been missing our photo at the end with all of you. So hoping that all of you who've joined the conversation will stay on till the end and we'll be able to have that picture taken. And we've been missing out on that opportunity for some time now. We have a lot of people continuing to join in, but I'm conscious of time. And thank you for all of you who've joined and who are already here on time. So without further ado, let me welcome with much ado and celebration, a complete celebration of a woman as who she is. So she is somebody that's taken the lowest rung in Uttar Pradesh's feudal system, the lower caste Dalit women, and has turned them into respected and influential instruments of development for the entire village. Her key insight is using the promise of development to force the higher castes, especially men, to acknowledge and respect these women, thereby completely changing the power dynamics in UP's patriarchal society. Several other things that Madhaviji does. She's, of course, founder of Sanat Kada, and she's inspiring in the way she works with the weavers and local communities to actually build platforms of economic engagement and development for them. She's also devoted for women's rights and for Lucknow's heritage. So she takes pride in everything that she does. And of course, as we speak to her today, we'll unravel more of her as we go on from here. So without further ado, let me invite Madhaviji. Madhaviji, if you can come on and if you can, yes, I'm going to pin you to this screen, requesting for all, I'm spotlighting Madhaviji for everyone. Yes. Welcome and thank you for having accepted to be with us this evening, Madhaviji.
Adab to everybody. And thank you, everyone. Aap log sab, you're here. And it's so wonderful. I've been, Antara's sort of been telling me about all you amazing women. And I think this solidarity and this opportunity that you've given me to have this conversation is just superb. Look forward to it.
Thank you. And your work is inspiring. Like I said, I have known of your work from many people who have originally been from Lucknow across segments, and they speak very highly of the kind of work that you do and the efforts that it takes into have built this community of women. So tell us a little bit about your journey and your foray into this, and how did it start for you, and what you had, sort of started off with, and how it burgeoned into this movement that you created.
Yeah. Thanks, Shreya, for these amazing introductions. But I think at one point, you know how it is, one was right through school and college, one kind of sort of in the students' union, felt very strongly about Eve teasing. I always felt very strongly as women, but I came from a background of privilege, like I think a lot of us do, and had a lot of opportunities, but of course noticed the inequality in all those opportunities. So with a lot of opportunity given by my parents, yet a lot of conversations around every little permission and every step. So, but I think that, I mean, I was on a track. I was in Lady Shri Ram. I was the president of the Students' Union and all that. And then I was in America. But when I came back, I was this, this person who'd never seen a village and never seen a gaon. And I really I thought, I'll do field work for a year. And as everyone said, the dream jobs were like a UN job or a development sector job, and you travel the world to go to conferences and everything. And then I guess I went to Banda and Chitrakoot, and my colleague Pushpa, who was sort of one of the founders of Anangana with me, she's on this call. She'll be also speaking a little bit. I saw what women the lives, and I think, I mean, when I reached, there was nothing like a women's collective, a women's group, women's empowerment. None of these words were used. Forget a feminist grassroots rural movement. And I got people say I got stuck for 14 years. And I lived there from 1990 to 2004. And everyone says from New York, sort of land of the guns, to Bundelkhand, the land of the guns and the dacoits, wasn't very different. They were just different parameters. But, I mean, it's just you suddenly realize there's a whole world there which has nothing to do with the rest of the world. And it seemed like a lifetime I could be there. And people always say, oh, how did you sacrifice so much? And I said, obviously, I was really enjoying myself. I mean, mujhe maza aa raha tha. I mean, it's a terrible word to use when you're talking about working and poverty and sexual assault and violence and everything. But there was something in the adrenaline that made me feel, and I just stayed on and on and on. So the 1 year turned to 14 years. And it's also the place where Ram had his Banvas, so sort of 14 years in Chitrakoot. And so was I there. And then with a wonderful bunch of women who said कि I think आप रुकी हैं यहाँ क्योंकि आपने अपने बाल नहीं काटे और अब सिगरेट नहीं पीती हैं. बल जो सारे दिल्ली वाली दीदी लोग हैं वो दोनों चीजें करती है. तो but with a wonderful group of women where we danced our hearts out, and worked our hearts out and walked our hearts out. I could have been there a lifetime, but then they wouldn't be the leaders they are today.
My God.
That's how I got there. That's how the story began. There's nothing as there was no calling or anything at that point, but that's how it began.
I think you spoke so beautifully of how, allowing, these women to sort of come into the light and bringing them into the light in some form, the way your work has, taken the path. Can you tell us a little bit about, wow, hello.
Hello, Voldo. Hi, Voldo.
Hi. Hi.
Sorry for that.
No problem at all.
She's come through what is a locked door.
Oh, okay.
She's
Okay, okay.
Megha and she's 4 years old and she's the youngest from the bachas.
Oh, wow. Okay. So tell us a little bit about that. Tell us, you spoke about Maza Aa Raha Tha, and you spoke about all of these areas that you worked in. But I think that adrenaline rush is from being able to impact change at that level, because when you think UP, you know there is this subliminal feeling of oppression, of regressive cultures, of thought processes, or at least the portrayal of it to the forefront, or that comes to the forefront in terms of what goes on there. But working there and being this sort of voice that collectively brought these women across all ages together, what was that like? And if you can tell us a little bit about the initiatives that you started from there on, and then we'll hear, of course, from the two women that you have lined up to speak to us as well.
Yeah, well, I'm going to try and put 14 years into, whatever, 2 minutes. But I think, I mean, one of the things is that we started working on what was our good hat and our bad hat. And I mean, I'm talking about levels of violence. Like in my first few months there, I mean, I came across, I don't know, I can't even count the number of dead bodies I saw. And like, hanging on a tree. And I mean, it was really bad lands. And no phone and no access to the other world of any kind. But as the women around, I mean, came together, and they were mostly survivors of violence, Pushpa being one of them, I realized that, I mean, the drive that they had, the amazing courage they had already in facing their lives, was something else. And you must remember that even now, so many years later, I don't think there is any group that does violence against women at this scale. But we started with what's our good hat, and that's a development hat. Because to survive and to find your roots in an area like this, you have to first get accepted by the communities in the whole, for the women to get permission to move. So we're talking about, women who've never left their village, women who've never gone to school. Literacy was 4%. You had to walk 10, 15 kilometers. The women had a saying that their ghada on their head should not break, even if their husband dies. It was that kind of area. And we worked with water was our first issue. So women repairing hand pumps, which I think doesn't exist anywhere in the world. You don't have plumbers in New Delhi or New York or Bombay or Bangalore or Hyderabad for that matter. And so women repaired pumps, and a simple thing like that. So working at with a feminist perspective. So even if you are giving access to livelihood or skills, it has to change something in their lives. So whether it has to change mobility, it has to change the ability to say no to violence, it has to change the fact that they can come into leadership in their communities. So the Dalit women for the first time were given tea on a charpai because they had repaired a hand pump. So I mean, I'm talking about early 1990s, and I don't think much has changed. After that, we basically worked with collectivization, and we had a collective of about 4,000 women. But slowly, who we worked on their leadership in their communities. So whether it was joining the school committee, whether it was standing for the panchayat elections, whether it was just getting work under Manrega. They built a whole tank, a whole women's group, while people believe that a women's group cannot build a huge water tank on their own. But these were laboring women, Mazdoor women. And like you said in the beginning, the feudal structure all embedded. But there was a lot of violence in the communities, and the violence naturally came in. So even if you were talking about, you said you're not talking about violence. I mean, every story was something so dramatic. Everything was so difficult. And we suddenly realized that we heard about these missing women, in fact, women who died like after they'd been married for a year or 2 years or 3 years. Either they'd committed suicide or they'd been killed and then just cremated or buried. And there was this whole thing of we started a campaign on Mujhe Jawab Do, and because we couldn't have a confrontation, we went into these communities and we did a play in which we showed a real story on how everybody would not support the women when she raised her voice. This was just to break the silence around violence. And the woman asked whether it was the doctor, whether it was the policeman, the head of the pradhan, as to why they didn't speak up, or why didn't her Maika people take her back. And somewhere we realized that both sides were as responsible, both the Maika and the Sasural. And so we would have these meetings in front of the house of the woman who died, and then ask the whole community the question as to who is responsible. I mean, she would get up like from her dead body and say, "Why didn't you all help me survive?" And there was not a dry eye in the whole audience of maybe 1,000, 1,500 people. And I'm talking about Pushpa used to sort of play the husband. And I think she would, people would, I mean, considering it's such a violent area with dacoits and police and everything, yet people would relate to the fact that yes, they were a parent also and a brother also, and they were the perpetrator, and they were Sasural side too. So we did these campaigns. We had a lot of single women who joined, and we also did realize that these journeys are very long journeys. So if you support a woman to become a single woman, if she leaves domestic violence or there's a sexual assault survivor, the journey doesn't finish in just doing a legal case or fighting the battle. It's about livelihood. It's about living on your own, or living with your family, your brother and your parents, without having rights in that home. It's about admission for your children and only using your name. And I'm talking about women who are mazdoor women who maybe have a little shop of vegetables or telas or whatever. And the level of violence I'm talking about, an acid survivor whose husband threw acid on her, covered half her face. I'm talking about being, hit by the carpenter uses that basula, which is like a pointed thing, and hit on the head by the husband. I'm talking about children abused by their father and having to live with that, and then we fighting cross cases for 14 years because the father files a case on us after that. So when you are fighting a issue of violence against women, you are also having to challenge and look at caste and class. Because if you're, like for instance, when we did a child sexual abuse case, the whole community, that means the whole district I'm talking about, and we had many political parties who took out demonstrations against us. At that point, it was ABVP and this and that. And they said that a Pandit is so colleen, how can he do child sexual abuse to his own child? I mean, forgetting that, yeah, even the wife and the daughter were Pandits also. And then shelter after that, legal support after that, going to court, and in these courts in the districts, you're the only women there. As an organization, I think we were all called all kinds of names. We carried on with our good hat and then our bad hat, where we dealt with violence against women, and our good hat being, doing so-called good developmental work. Yeah, 14 years I've tried to do in maybe over time, 5 minutes.
No, but that reminds me of intersectionality, and of course that also reminds this entire room full of women that we are of the kind of privilege that we hold to be in the spaces that we're in, and it's very humbling. At the same time, it's also important for all of us to remember that I'm sure there'll not be a single person in the room who has not been subject to some form of patriarchy or misogyny, whether it's from women or from men in their ecosystem. And you spoke beautifully of intersectionality. When you look at gender-based violence, how that is connected so much to caste. And so, then that's a double whammy. then it's a triple whammy. So the casteism is similar to racism in the US, and you spoke beautifully of the intersectionality that brings with being a Dalit and then being a woman, and then you have all of that added on in terms of lack of privileges because where you come.
Yeah, just to add, also a lot of Muslim women in our group, and with the same kinds of, obviously, they're also on the margins. But there's a little saying I must tell you about also, that the community, some of the Dalit women and the Muslim women would say that we are better off than the upper caste women because their walls are so thick that nobody can, hear what's happening inside to them. As far as the violence, and only their dead body comes out. At least when we're beaten up, everybody knows, the whole mohalla knows, because our walls are so thin. So the irony of it, and in fact, the irony of how Dalit women sat to support an upper caste woman who was educated, and the Dalit women were mazdoor and illiterate in her struggle against her husband. So, I mean, intersectionality and then community also.
Beautiful.
So it's
so when you said that about the quote, what this lady said, I remember reading this piece where it said, if you grow up in an all-women household, it's so easy because everything levels out. It's the tallest person that changes the bulb and so on. Then there is no gender to it. It's just about who has the capability and capacity. And kudos to the work that you have been doing through the years to just bring them out for who they are, irrespective of where they come from and what their gender may be. And I think that empowerment shows. So if you can, I know we want to bring Pushpa in. We have a couple of minutes more. But can you tell us a little bit about Sanat Kada? Because that I'm sure will excite all of our listeners.
Yeah, I will. And I hope your gang can come in. The whole Wow Kitty can come to Lucknow sometimes in better times. But we run Sanat Kada as a craft space. Sanat as craft and Kada as home for craft. And we run that. We're also on online now. The pandemic has some good things. But, when I went into the craft sector also, and after all this violence and work, and also I wanted to, I think it's important to move out, not I wanted to, because otherwise the next rung of leadership can never take over if you don't, you have to move for leadership to change. And I always felt that people like Pushpa, who's here, and Swati are more role models in the community than I am, because I'm always, quote unquote, an outsider who's come in with a certain privilege that I hold. We have a festival, a cultural festival, and I realized that even in the craft sector, women were craftspersons, but not people who were doing the marketing, not the people who would come to the exhibitions. We're a group of women, again, from different communities in Lucknow, the underprivileged communities who are on the margins, who hold this festival. And we weave in a theme every year. And one of the themes that we have over the years, which is the Lucknow theme, so from Husne Karigari to feminists of Awadh. And so Begum Akhtar being one of them. So we weave it into our festival. It's a food festival, cultural festival, crafts, literary, everything. So it's a mela, and it's there for a lot of masti. Please look it up online. And please join us and shop. Antara is one of our mascots. She supported us as we've gone online in these challenging times. Sanatkada.in. Well, I could go on and on, but do come and journey with us. Bahut maza aayega. We give you lots of acha khana and lots of beautiful crafts and buildings, and the Lucknow Tehzeeb will take great care of you.
Absolutely, and the Lucknow food and the heartfelt warmth that the Lucknowis have, it's a joy. But of course, for all those of you who are Sanat Kada fans, I mean, who are fans of sari, Sanat Kada is a great place to buy the weaves. Well, yeah, there is truth in the fact that I have, and I'm proud to own a lot of the Sanat Kada saris. So thank you so much,
Shreya. Thank you.
So it is in a small way you want to impact, then you do it, then you go and buy from people who are. So yeah, did we lose? We are getting Pushpa in. So Pushpa, पुष्पा जी,
जी 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 बिल्कुल।
आपको हम स्पॉटलाइट कर देते हैं। आप अपना वीडियो ऑन करेंगी? पुष्पा जी नमस्ते।
नमस्ते नमस्ते जी
जी पुष्पा जी बोलिए, आप बोलिए। आपको आप इतने सालों से इसमें काम कर रही हैं और आप खुद ऐसे एक बैकग्राउंड से आई हैं जहाँ पे आपको वो सब सहने के बाद आके आप इतना सब कुछ कर चुकी हैं। आप आपके बारे में थोड़ा बताइए और आपके काम के बारे में थोड़ा बताइए।
जी नमस्ते सभी लोगों को। मैं शुरुआत करूंगी अपने अपने खुद की जिंदगी में जो मैंने संघर्ष झेले हैं, और वो शायद मेरा एक मजबूत अनुभव बनकर के सामने आया है, जिसको जोड़ते हुए मैं अपने कार्य क्षेत्र में, अपने फील्ड में जो और महिलाएं हैं उनकी मैं मदद कर पा रही हूँ, उनको सहयोग कर पा रही हूँ, और उनको हिंसा के खिलाफ आवाज उठाने में उनको एक मजबूत तौर पर एक मंच पर भी ला पा रही हूँ कि वो खुले रूप से जो उनके साथ हिंसा हो रही है उसका वो विरोध कर सके और बोल सके। तो मैं अपनी बात अगर करूं तो मैं इसी बुंदेलखंड में पैदा हुई और यही मेरी शादी हुई, यही सारा कुछ हुआ। तो मतलब शादी के पहले से मैं यहाँ से जोड़ना चाहूंगी कि जो सामाजिक परिवेश में जो शिक्षा मिलती है वो सबसे ज्यादा हावी रही मेरे साथ। शादी के बाद फिर वह मतलब वही सोच कि डोली और अर्थी वाला की शादी होती तो डोली नहीं करती, अर्थी होती, वो सोच हावी थी। और हिंसा के रूप की अगर मैं बात करूं तो हिंसा तो उस हद तक हुई है कि मैंने मतलब मेरे बच्चे कोख में ही मारे गए। तो एक जो बहुत बड़ा रूप होता है उस हिंसा का रूप का भी मैंने सामना किया है। और वो सारा करते हुए वही होता है ना, जैसे कि एकदम जब हिंसा हद से ऊपर, हद से सर से करके ऊपर से पानी निकल गया, तब शायद उसको विरोध करके और मैं बाहर निकली हूँ। मैं एक संघर्षशील महिला भी हूँ और मैं एक एकल महिला भी हूँ। तो जो मतलब कोख में बच्चे को रख करके आई थी, फिर मैंने उसको जन्म दिया, उसका पालन पोषण और पढ़ाई लिखाई खुद मैं अकेले रह करके ही वो सारा कुछ अभी तक हम कर पा रहे हैं। तो वो भी चैलेंजेस सामने आए जो शायद वही जो अभी भी बात हो रही थी कि किराए का घर लेने में सवाल, तो बाहर रहने में सवाल, ये सारे सवालों का सामना करते हुए आगे निकले हैं। और इसीलिए शायद महिलाओं से जब हम महिलाओं की काउंसलिंग करते हैं, उनसे बात करते हैं और ये कहते हैं कि आप हिंसा के खिलाफ आवाज उठाओ, तो काफी लंबा समय होता है उनको ये बोलने के लिए कि मेरे साथ हिंसा हो रही है, क्योंकि सबसे ज्यादा हावी है सामाजिक सोच जो उन्हें बचपन से लेकर के बड़े तक सिखाई जाती है। काफी इसके बाद जब वो आवाज भी उठाती हैं, बाहर निकलती हैं, तब फिर बहुत सारे सवाल आते हैं कि अगर ससुराल से आती है तो फिर उसके लिए मायके में भी जगह नहीं है, फिर अगर मायके में जगह नहीं है, ससुराल में जगह नहीं, तो वो जाए कहाँ, उसकी वो अपना भरण पोषण कैसे करे, अगर उसके बच्चे छोटे तो उनका पालन पोषण कैसे करे। तो इस तरह के सवाल भी सामने आते हैं। तो हमारे पास मतलब बहुत ऐसे केसेस हैं, बहुत ऐसी महिलाएं हमारे साथ जुड़ी हुई हैं, हमारे पास आती हैं जिनका सहयोग करना पड़ता है। तो अगर मैं संस्था के परिपेक्ष में कहूँ तो संस्था फिर वो सारी चीजों का ध्यान रखती है कि अगर एक महिला अपनी जबान खोलती है, हिंसा के खिलाफ बोलती है, तो फिर उसके सामने क्या क्या चैलेंजेस सामने आएंगे, उनका सामना वो कैसे कर पाएगी। जैसे उदाहरण के तौर पर अगर मैं रखूं तो लक्ष्मी छेराव वाला जो केस है, उसके साथ हिंसा लगातार होती रही, वो सहती रही, लेकिन लास्ट में वो हिंसा एक चरम सीमा पार कर गई और उसे छत से ही फेंक दिया गया, जिससे उसकी रीढ़ की हड्डी में पूरा घाव किया। और उसका अब इस समय मायके में है, उसके ट्रीटमेंट का कोई भी ससुराल वालों से कोई मतलब नहीं है। अगर हम प्रशासन की बात करें, कानूनी प्रक्रिया की बात करें, 498 का केस तो हुआ है, लेकिन कुछ भी नहीं हो रहा है। उसकी चार्जशीट तक अभी नहीं लगी, उसके बयान तक नहीं लिए जा रहे हैं, जिसमें लगे हुए हैं, लगातार काम कर रहे हैं। लेकिन वो भी चीज है, सबसे बड़ी बात कि उसका इलाज कैसे हो, वो बच्चे कैसे, वो जिंदा कैसे रहे इस दुनिया में। तो उसकी सबसे बड़ी जो सवाल होते हैं महिलाओं के साथ, ऐसे मैं और भी सारे अभी नए केस हमारे पास आए हैं। अगर हम यौन उत्पीड़न की भी बात करें, अभी का केस है कि मतलब एक 13 साल की लड़की जिसकी पहली माहवारी आई, उसी माहवारी में वो प्रेग्नेंट हो गई, क्योंकि उसके साथ वही पावरफुल जो लोग थे उन्होंने किया और उसे धमकी दिया कि आप बोल नहीं सकते हो, आप जबान खोलोगे तो पूरे परिवार को मार दिया जाएगा। अब दोनों तरह की चीजें जो मैं कोशिश कर रही हूँ कहने की, कि एक तो शारीरिक हिंसा, दूसरा सामाजिक हिंसा, और तीसरी वो
Sorry, I think Pushpa's
Pushpa
gone off, but
dropped.
maybe we can go to Swati, Shreya
Yeah.
instead.
So just a second, Madhavi, for those who don't understand Hindi, she was talking about her personal story, her own loss of her child in the womb, because that was the level of violence that was meted out to her. Then she went on to have her child, and she speaks about the resilience that is needed to be able to fight violence. And she said that's what spurred her into this movement for so many other women. And she said just to get them to speak about the fact that there's violence going on takes a really long time. So it's long investments of time for them to be able to speak up. Madhavi ji, yes, we have one more speaker who's actually again one of the people who has undergone this, and one of the women that the team is supporting currently. So can we bring her up, please?
I'd like to introduce Swati and ask Swati to come on. She's a survivor, one of my proudest bachas who I'm proudest of. And I think this is the first time she's going to speak to a group like this. Swati? And she's a fourth year nursing student who's
Hi.
just finished her final exams.
Hi.
And thank you all for giving us a safe space for her to speak also. Yeah. Swati, you want to shoot?
So first of all, I am really nervous. बहुत ही ज़्यादा, क्योंकि पहले कभी ऐसा अपने बारे में बताने का मौका भी नहीं मिला, और बताना भी नहीं चाहती थी, शायद मैं रेडी नहीं थी कभी, और कभी इस बारे में बात भी नहीं की, apart from Madhavi and Pushpa Didi and these kind of things and people, or I don't know, I'm still nervous.
Don't worry, Swati. It's a full room. It's a safe space. आप आपकी कहानी के द्वारा बहुत लोगों को होप दे सकती हैं. आप बोलिए, आपको जैसे पुष्पा जी और माधवी जी हैं, हम भी वैसे हैं.
तो मैं एक बहुत ही छोटे से गांव से बिलोंग करती थी, और कहते हैं करती हूँ भी कह सकते हैं, पर आई थिंक मेरे हिसाब से तो करती थी कहना चाहिए. तो जब मैं वहाँ पे थी, और मैं सिर्फ 13 और 14 ईयर ओल्ड थी, उस टाइम पे मेरे साथ में मेरे खुद के फादर ने जब सेक्सुअल हैरेसमेंट करना स्टार्ट किया, रेप करना स्टार्ट किया, तब मैं वो सारी चीज़ों से अवेयर नहीं थी. और जब ये चलता रहा, 5 साल बीत गए, और जब मैं इन सब चीज़ों से धीमे धीमे अवेयर होना स्टार्ट हुई, मैंने घर वालों को बताने की भी कोशिश की, और काफ़ी बार मैंने उन्होंने बताया भी, पर उनका कोई रिस्पॉन्स नहीं था मेरे लिए. फिर मैंने अपनी फ्रेंड के थ्रू एक वीडियो बनाया जब मैं उनके अगेंस्ट जाना चाहती थी, और जैसे भी करके उस वीडियो के थ्रू और उसके अगेंस्ट मैंने FIR किया. और फिर वो जो जर्नी थी वो बहुत ही कॉम्प्लिकेटेड थी, बहुत ही टेरिबल थी मेरे लिए. उस टाइम पे मुझे पता भी नहीं था कि मैं कहाँ जाऊंगी, क्या करूंगी, क्या खाऊंगी, क्या पहनूंगी, कैसे पढ़ूंगी आगे. सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट बात, क्योंकि सिर्फ मेरा 12th था, 12th कंप्लीट था और उसके आगे मुझे कुछ भी नहीं पता था कि मुझे क्या करना है। पर फाइनली एक जर्नलिस्ट के थ्रू मैं वनांगना से मिली, उस वनांगना चित्रकूट से। उसके बाद में मैं फिर लखनऊ आई, माधवी दी से मिली, एंड सनत कदा और वनांगना ने मुझे फाइनेंशियली भी सपोर्ट किया और मेरी स्टडी में भी सपोर्ट किया और मेंटली भी बहुत ज़्यादा सपोर्ट किया और अभी भी कर ही रहे हैं और आगे भी करेंगे। आई होप सो।
सभी बोल रहे हैं आप बहुत करेजियस है, कि आप बहुत ब्रेव हैं। आपकी कहानी हमारे साथ बांटने के लिए थैंक यू। और आपका फ्यूचर बहुत ही अमेजिंग रहे। नर्सिंग आपने चूज क्यों किया? आपको नर्स क्यों बनना था?
क्योंकि मैं हमेशा से देखती थी वाइट कोट में एंड स्टेथोस्कोप में नर्सेस को, तो मुझे बहुत इंटरेस्ट आता था कि मुझे नर्सिंग करना है, इसलिए मैंने नर्सिंग में ज्यादा फोर्स दिया कि मुझे
आपको यहाँ
नर्सिंग।
पे आपकी कहानी जो सारे सुन रहे हैं, सब आपको प्रोत्साहन और उत्साह दे रहे हैं कि आपके सारे ख्वाब जो हैं वो सच हो और आप सब अचीव करें जो आपको करना है। और आपकी कहानी हमारे साथ शेयर करने के लिए बहुत बहुत थैंक यू। और अंतरा जी,
Can I tell you that Swati also is a model for Sanat Kada. So she's got many sides to her, and she writes, and she's an amazing sister to Megha, and she's the first person in her district. It's the first case under POSCO that she won the battle in court, and she's gone through those court hearings, and so now she's going to lead the way. She nags me a lot. She nags Pushpa a lot also, but she's our so we're going to hang on to her now, and she's going to lead the way.
and we're very proud. We're very proud of you. And Swati, thank you really. And Madhavi ji, I mean, amazing. I mean, both those organizations that Swati just spoke about are Madhavi ji's organizations, and that talks to you about the work. So Swati, आपको क्या करना है? आपको आगे जाके बदलाव कैसे लाने के लिए आप ढूंढेंगी और आप क्या करेंगी?
मैं फर्स्ट तो मैं अपनी स्टडी में एक बहुत अच्छी साइकोथेरेपिस्ट बनना चाहती हूँ। सेकेंड थिंग ये कि जब मैं बहुत अच्छे से पैसे कमाने लगूंगी और जब मैं इतनी एबल हो जाऊंगी लोगों की हेल्प करने के लिए, तो मैं चाहती हूँ कि जो मेरे जैसे और भी लोग हैं जो नहीं बोल पाते हैं ये सारी चीज़ों के बारे में, जो उनके साथ में हरेसमेंट हो रहा है या फिर जो भी चीज़ें वो फेस कर रहे हैं वो नहीं बोल पाते, उन्हें उसके लिए इनकरेज करूंगी, उन्हें हेल्प करना चाहती हूँ।
Thank you, Swati. That's a really beautiful dream and thought. And आप तो already कर रही हैं help. अब तो आपके बारे में माधवी जी भी बोल रही हैं कि आप ये सब कर रही हैं, तो ऑलरेडी आप जो भी करना चाह रहे हैं कुछ शुरुआत आपने कर चुकी हैं। तो थैंक
यू सो मच।
Thank you. Guys, I'm not going to ask her the questions, some of them which could be triggers, so just being conscious of that. Just being conscious of the trigger warning. Yeah. Yes. Does yeah. स्वाति जी, जो भी बच्चे हैं और यहाँ पे 2-3 बच्चे हैं, वो सब आपसे इंस्पायर्ड हैं, बहुत ही इंस्पायर्ड हैं। तो ऑलरेडी आप इंस्पायर कर रही हैं लोगों को कि आपकी जो दृढ़ता है वो शायद सब में आए और सब ढूंढ पाए उनमें ये जो चीज आप रखती हैं। मेरी हिंदी उतनी अच्छी नहीं है, मुझसे जो जितना बोल सकती हूँ
मैं समझ लूंगी।
Yeah. Thank you so much, Swati, and of course Pushpa. Madhavi ji, I mean, commendable that the kind of work. I know what you mean when you say adrenaline rush now. Are there any other questions? If you have, just do share.
For a second.
Yeah.
Just want to very quickly say about the latest initiative that Madhavi Didi and I discussed with Shreya. Maybe Madhavi Didi can talk. But Swati, एक तो मैं बता दूं, मैं अस्पताल चलाती हूँ, मेरा नाम अंतरा है, मैं माधवी दीदी की बहुत बड़ी फैन हूँ। और आपको जब भी नौकरी चाहिए, कोई भी नौकरी चाहिए, आपकी नौकरी पक्की, ठीक है? आपको जो भी करियर चाहिए वो मैं ऑर्गेनाइज कर दूंगी, अगर तुमको कभी भी जरूरत पड़े तो वो तो तुमको गारंटी है। अब माधवी दीदी
Swati, पकड़ लेना, she's just finishing her 4th year.
I'm गारंटी है तुमको, जहाँ भी तुमको नौकरी चाहिए तुम्हें मिल जाएगी। I think I just want to talk very quickly about Madhavi Didi's initiative called Mehuna, which is about linking women of privilege like ourselves to survivors like Pushpa and Swati, and us putting our maybe our money where our mouth is, and really going to support 1, 2, 10 sisters, whatever we can afford, and taking them through that journey. So it's a fabulous new project and initiative. And we are going to be, as Wow Kitty, the trustees have said, we're going to find a way that we're going to promote this initiative, encourage more women to adopt sisters and to take them through these journeys. So looking forward to anybody who wants to get involved, jumping in, guiding us, finding ways to help us promote this initiative of Madhavi Didi. I know, Madhavi Didi, you haven't said any of the challenges during the pandemic you faced, because not only of the work that you do, but also the, you know, the political environment you have to deal with, the bureaucratic environment you have to deal with, but how much your funding has suffered, how many challenges your NGOs have suffered. So we're not going to discuss that, but what we will say is we are going to support the work that you do. It sits in the sweet spot of our NGO, and we're going to help you promote that. So I have sent around the last project proposal that, you know, the sort of the deck of the stories that you sent. So we're going to find a way, and I'm going to ask, I'm putting her on the spot, but I'm going to ask Priya to help help us promote this. I can see she's very impacted by this story, and find a way to get sisters to adopt sisters. And I think that's important, that we really go ahead and do this, you know, one-on-one. Pushpa, up,
Yeah.
Kamal ho. Madhavi Didi, over to you, if you'd like to talk to us.
Yes. So, Madhavi ji, now my next connected question was that, in terms of it's a huge, many years of body of work, and you speak about it with so much ease, but I'm sure the reality at the grassroots level of mind blocks, of impact, of change has not been something that's easy, has not been something that's you know, comfortable to navigate. So tell us about those challenges, and tell us in terms of you know, what is it that people can do? Like, a lot of people here are listening to, yes, of course, Sanat Kada is a way to promote and buy into the ideology, but I'm sure there's a lot more that people may be interested in wanting to do. And if you can speak to us a little bit about the challenges.
You know, I mean, I think we work with a feminist perspective. And I mean, Pushpa unfortunately has been disconnected, but Swati wants to come on with something she can. I think, I mean, the biggest challenge, of course, is one is just initially just simple financial support, in the sense, like, you know, we do walk with people to the courts. We stay with them every single time. So when you're dealing with the violence against women case, actually your only allies are police. And you know, the police and the judicial system themselves, the way they look at all this is also another challenge. But I think it's just this whole thing of, how do you walk with someone for so many years? I mean, it's not like about 1 year and 2 years, because it's not easy being a single woman in a small town. How do you strengthen people? How do you support them with their children? How do you keep being family for people? And besides, you know, the violence and the threats and the fears that you live with, I mean, you can obviously understand. I mean, Swati has underplayed her confidence and her strength, because you know, she's not in communication with her family, and she went every time to court, and she had to face that person, for example, on the other side. And you know, you live a life of I mean, women live with the bhoot of violence, you know, all their lives, in a way, and with no mental health support in our country, and forget rural UP. And I think we're the only organization in rural UP that is working in a sustained way with violence against women. I mean, it's constantly like, either you're battling the family, because here you're battling everybody,
Yeah.
or the community, or I mean, so, you know, unlike it, the allies, I mean, of course, everybody is a father, and everybody is a father-in-law. and every brother is also a husband. So we've also had people who've come and stood by us saying, you know, it was happened to my sister and I'm on your side. So it's not, I mean, you don't want to make it men versus women. And often the police are also have been our allies. I mean, we've had to build them. We have had to do that bhaiya relationship, because I mean, they're the only allies you have sometimes, even more than the community, even though they have no perspective. So I think that how do you build the social capital to work? So and it's not, I mean, of course, I mean, and I think that that's why we're looking at all of you, because just even having an equal relationship, I mean, I think Swati and me have learned so much from each other in this relationship. So sometimes I think, like, it's not about paying a kid's school fees, it's also about, you know, walking with that person, maybe having conversations, maybe on the phone, maybe sometimes even calling them into your homes. I mean, I know I'm putting out something crazy as an idea, but you know, they don't even, many women don't have anywhere to go to as a mica, as a home. So I think that I really feel that I mean, I'm fighting like some, I don't know, 8 legal battles. And even now, even though I've not been there for 14 years and I'm out here sitting in Lucknow, and Pushpa and all do it every day, they keep getting threatened. So I think that these are the biggest challenges that you're taking on the whole patriarchal system.
Yeah.
In every way. You're taking on caste, you're taking on sometimes community divide, you're known as a love jihad organization. Antara talked about, you know, the political dispensation and why an NGO like us will not get support. People want to do development work. They don't want to do rights-based. You know, violence is cutting edge. There's something scary about it. It's risky. It's it's emotionally very sort of wearing out. So it's like being a doctor on call. I mean, you're in the health sector and people are in other sectors. So I mean, I'm sure all of you have your own. But I think it's both the working in all, I mean, like having to strategize legally and everything, and having to emotionally be there for people and dealing with community and family. So, you know, it's like the whole gamut.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible the kind of work that it takes to be able to empower something like this. There are some comments, Madhavi ji, which I shall read out for you, because I think there is a lot of people who are acknowledging the work. It starts with, you're a very courageous person, Swati. Hats off to Madhavi ji for doing such amazing transformational work. Wishing you a very happy future, Swati. Much love. Madhavi ji, you're so inspiring and amazing. More power to feminist voices that are so needed. And then Swati says, and yes, she's my inspiration, Madhavi Ma, and she's just amazing. Antara says, I would love to host Swati and Pushpa at home. Pushpa, cheers to you for coming out as a victor in life. So these are some of the messages. Are there any questions? If anybody has any questions, please post them and I will, you know, post them to Madhavi ji. Lots of comments on Madhavi ji's work. Shoma's also said amazing work. Yes, any questions, if anybody has, if you can post them, because otherwise I can continue to speak and continue.
We should call Jija in and Shoma for a comment or a thing. I think both of them are quite impacted as well. And then Priya.
If Priya's already on video, so while I'll ask Shoma and Jija to come on video, Priya, maybe you can just pose a comment or a question. And then Jija will have you go, and then we'll have Shoma go.
I've already posted, Shreya.
Yeah, did you post a question? I'm sorry, I think.
No. Just no questions.
Oh,
Yeah,
the comment, yeah.
It's fantastic listening to this. And do you ever get bogged down by the red tape?
All the time. All the time.
How do you beat it? How do
you know, also, besides the red tape, the most amazing thing is that there is no government department actually for violence against women, except the police. because Women in Child is a women in child department which focuses more on, nutrition schemes and this and that. But violence against women, so now you have these one-stop shelters in women and child, which is a very recent thing over the last 2-3 years. But actually, I mean, uh, also just the perspective building is so difficult because, this whole thing of always, however violent the situation is, save the marriage. And it's not a priority issue. This is not a priority issue. So even if at a local level, at a district, a district magistrate or everybody will not give it that importance, that priority, the safety and security. So like if a woman dies, even the police are not going to collect the kind of proof they need from a normal murder. That's a murder in the family, and so it's a murder that should happen. So it's how do you make this issue an important issue, that women's lives are important? 30 years later, we are still struggling with that. Obviously you find some good people who go out of the way and help one person, but that's not an infrastructural change. That's what you need, is that at a district level where there's nobody in, and the role of an NGO is obviously limited. You can't provide that kind of security. When there was this big thing and we had threats to our lives and it came on national television, then for a few days we got some security or something. But often you have to, even in Chitrakoot and Banda, Pushpa's not here, you have to see the cast, because then the cast of the SP and the DM and everybody, forget red tapeism. It's like, how do you break perspective first? And that if they're all the same cast, then they're surely going to help the perpetrator, and that's happened many times. And in this day and age still. So I think that I just feel that the red tapeism is just that they don't think it's important. They don't think it's part of their work. They give you a sympathetic ear, but a woman's life is not part of their work. It's an added burden.
So at this juncture, thank you, Priya, and thank you, Madhavi ji. At this juncture, I'll just weigh in on the comment that Jija made and then bring her in. She said, I've handled these from the 80s before laws came, was part of formulating the domestic violence laws 498A as SP in CID. Voluntarily, I took charge of dowry deaths in 1986. So this is a place where the two of you meet, in terms of the place and time and the work that collides together. Jija, the stage is yours now.
I'm honored, ma'am, as you're a sister in solidarity, and thank you for the work you did, which has made our work possible, however challenging it is.
Thank you so much, Madhavi. I felt as though I was walking through my career where I was dealing with domestic violence. I came across it in 1982. First time I was SP of Chitradurga. I did not know till then that, domestic violence is there, except in bastis, and, people got drunk. The watchmen and the security guards and all those people got drunk and beat their wives. But in 1988, I had the good fortune to attend a workshop for police officers, to sensitize police officers. I was the one, two IPS officers from India went. I was the one from South India. And there I came to know that judges and ambassadors and everybody beat their wives, and that it is such a conspiracy of silence. But it was really, really, it was very painful for me because, almost like the Pushpa and all of that, it was like reliving those traumatic, it was trauma for me also as a woman, and no laws. Violence at that time in the family was just, she was just beaten. It was just a love pat. If you ask the people who are in power, I understand your problems with the police very, very well. And I'm so glad that Andhra and Shreya have taken the initiative to support you, support this organization. And definitely whatever can be done will be done. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. You're such an inspiration, really. I mean, I'm honored to be taking it ahead. And I think what does make us all I think Priya asked this question about, it's we're survivors, we're not victims. And I think Pushpa is a survivor, Swati is a survivor, and it's the positive energy in knowing that there's a whole beautiful world ahead of you, and you live with the violence, but you live with the beauty. And we're not Bichara for sure. There's no Bichara gang there. And it's people like you led the way for us.
Wow. On that note, that's something to remember. There's no Bechara gang for us. I mean, we know Becharas. Rashmi has asked a question. I'll bring Shoma in. I'm conscious of time as well. There is a question from Rashmi which says, is there any work being done to track numbers and even have some tracking towards driving penal code changes and other means to keep this in the forefront? I know that there are NGOs working in this segment and the grassroots work is amazing and absolutely making a difference. How can we get data to drive this as one of the most important issues facing women all over the world? Thank you for sharing, and I will be sure to follow up. This is Rashmi.
I think a very important question, Rashmi, but that there is the national crime data that comes out every year. And so that's the data we often use, actually. The NCRB report that comes out every 2 years, actually. And that has a lot of data and increasing numbers. And, you always, people say that, oh, what does your work have to do with anything? Because the numbers are going up, even the numbers that we keep. We actually give like numbers and data to the whole district sort of every year or every 2 years, and we say this is the and for that is an indicator of breaking of silence. The fact that more people are coming out is not that we failed, but because we never had a baseline in the beginning at all. And so there numbers of cases, and I think the statistics are very important. But I don't know how. I mean, people see statistics, people see incidents in the newspaper, but how does it? It doesn't. It's a number. It's like you see so much. You see about people being robbed. You see this too. So somewhere, the silence and the patriarchy, and I guess not enough. I mean, still not enough women who are breaking that silence. I mean, there are a lot more than they were maybe 20 years ago, but obviously not enough still who can, break it and then move on. So I think, and too many women living with it also, just constantly living with it. People, you and me know, just friends and cousins and family who live with violence. I mean, in Lucknow, I had this huge issue of people knew that I did this work. And even though my work is not in Lucknow on this issue, people would keep coming to me. But the courage that it took them, being educated and all the resources. So I think the story begins with the women. I think numbers are very important. We have to keep putting them out. But somewhere, unless the numbers tell you something, people blank out with numbers after a point also. So that's my thing. So absolutely, I agree with you. And I think we have to keep tracking the data. And we do. In Manangana, the team does. And like I said, that they are the real role models, because it's Pushpa who sort of does the 300 cases with a team of, cases a year, between 250, 300, 350 a year. And during COVID lockdown, cases increase because men are at home. There's no access to the police. There's no mobility. So it's worse, actually. The depth of the violence is worse in COVID. Both years we've seen that.
Yeah. As is the fact that the reality in India is not very great in contrast to, of course, oppression and all of this is a very common thing all around the world. Gender-based violence is. But India actually has most number of cases of women actually going to the hospital because of domestic violence, not because of pregnancy, not because of cardiovascular health, but most number of women in India go to the hospital because they have been at the receiving end of physical violence. And the most unsafe space for women in this country is their own homes, not the street, not the dark alleys, but their own homes. And that reality is hard to stomach. Shoma, I'm going to bring you in here. I'm going to ask you to weigh in. I've kept you waiting for long enough. So Shoma, if you can just turn off your mic and just come on video and just share.
Sure. Thanks, Shreya. Madhavi ji, I don't know what to say. I don't have any question. I have immense respect and admiration for the work that you're doing. As you said, the space that you are tackling is not the trodden path. Most people, I'm in the social sector as well, we choose very comfortable spaces to work in. So, education for the underprivileged, nutrition, those are very easy to deal with. And most of us choose such work because it's very hard to do the kind of work that you're doing. Activism and trying to deal with the system, and which is so nuanced. It's not just bureaucrats, as you said, it has so many nuances: caste, creed, color, religion, you name it, and we have it all, right? And you are battling all of that. So hats off to you. I'm actually very grateful to Antara and Shreya for creating this event and getting us acquainted with you and your organizations. Your body of work is simply outstanding. And hopefully someday we can all travel to Lucknow and meet you and, participate in the Mela that you talked about. At this point, all I can say is we would love to learn from you. I am absolutely awed by Swati's bravery to come on camera and speak to a bunch of women and reveal the deepest hurts that she has had in her life is amazing. So, if I could in any way help her with her education, I know she would like to complete her nursing and do psychotherapy, etc. My foundation provides scholarships to students who come from backgrounds that need support. So I am available. Antara knows what to do. I'll be most happy to support her as far as she'd like to go in terms of education. I think data is very important, but one of the things that is also very important is not to lose sight of the fact that violence against even a single woman is a crime, and we should stand up to it. So it doesn't matter whether 100 women are being beaten up or one. If we are able to help even that single person from falling through the cracks, we have done our job. And you are, of course, handling hundreds of cases. So I think always keeping that perspective is important. Otherwise, people start looking at impact and they'll say, well, how many women have you rescued? And how many people have you rehabilitated? It doesn't matter. Everyone is important. So thank you, Madhavi ji. I'm very awed, very inspired. And I think Jija has talked about a very important point, the conspiracy of silence. While we are talking about the rural, unempowered women, I think amongst our societies and communities, we have so many cases of domestic violence where the silence is even stronger just because everybody's trying to put on that mask. So I think we can learn a lot from Swati, and we can learn from you, Madhaviji and Pushpa, and hopefully we'll do our bit not only for the rural poor, but also for women and sisters amongst ourselves who need help. So thank you so much for a wonderful session. And Shreya, what can I say? You are such an eloquent and articulate moderator. It's always a pleasure to have you guide us through these sessions. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Shoma. I think it's an honor to be able to be in conversation with women like this, and it gives me goose flesh to sort of absorb this, and it's so amazingly in line with the work that we do here at WOW that it's, like I said, very, very humbling. There are more comments coming in. Rashmi says, sorry, I have to leave, but wanted to share that I applaud this movement from the bottom of my heart. We'll follow up later and see how I can get involved and help. Thank you for the session. And I think she said LMC friend. So I'm guessing that
Yeah.
conspiracy of silence and no bechara gang. I'm in love with these terms. Priya, I echo that absolutely. I think this session of sharing has been, I think just sharing is so empowering. Just to be able to speak to a space of or a room of people who come from community and consciousness and no judgment. and to be able to share this is, I think, is the basic sense of why WOW was created, that women can stand up for women and do things for each other, whether it's opening up your home or your heart. It's little things that matter. And Madhavi ji, hats off to the amazing, amazing work that both your organizations do. Lucknow is surely on our cards, and I was spoken
and
about.
maybe and maybe Banda and Chitrakoot too. The Banda Badlands. Really.
Why not? You know, like I said, I had friends who spoke about you 3 years ago, and here I am today in conversation with you. It's a full circle. Life really comes a full circle. It's incredible, and I think I speak for everyone when I say that Pushpa and Swati and all of these lives that you've touched, the way Swati said, Madhavi Ma, it's just incredible, and I think that really touches the heart. So hoping in all forms and ways to use all the platforms and accesses that we have as a community, as a collective. We will share your contact details on the group of the organization and everything. People can reach out to you, email you, write to you, fund you, do whatever they want to do directly. And through WOW, of course, we will do our bit. I can't say I have had a very placid time. I've had my throat choke a little bit several points of time in this conversation, and I hope that the incredible strength that you've brought to all of these women just increases, and each one does one for another. So thank you so much, and thank you for joining us. Again, I'm conscious of time, and I can go on with this conversation, but we'll come back for more. Thank you.
Thank you for being our circle of feminist sisters, really. Thank you all. Thank you so much, especially Antara and Shreya also, and all of you. And it's felt
who's there, if you can switch off, if you can switch on your cameras, we can, I can stop the spotlight and get everybody in one frame, and we can take a couple of screenshots. Madhavi ji, sorry I interrupted you, but I thought while you were saying...
I just wanted to say thank you to everyone, that's all.
And Swati, in case you're not comfortable with us sharing this, we'll edit out the clip of your speaking, and then we will post the rest of it on social media. So let us know. Based on...
No, I'm comfortable.
Okay, more power to you. More power to you. Thank you. We are championing you. And for everybody, if you can just switch on your cameras, there's 19 of us left in the room. Just quickly, if you can all switch on your cameras. I'm doing a gallery view. I would like to have all of your faces. And
Geeta, Preeti.
Yeah, we have
Veda,
another very interesting. Yeah, and yeah, I don't know. My mother is also in the room, but I don't know if she's camera ready. Debashish runs another very interesting organization called iCure. They work a lot with the arts and medical health.
Debashish is a junior of Madhavi Didi by 2 years.
Oh,
La Martiniere, all La Martiniere gang. Dr. Debashish is head of safety at Reckitt Beckinsale.
Hey, not 2 years, more than that, yeah.
You're being kind to yourself.
Says that.
Yes.
I've put dye on.
Amazing. Amazing. So whoever's here with their
camera on karo.
Cameras, we had a lot more people, but I think at the end of 8:30, a lot of them dropped off. So Antara, if you can take screenshots, I'm taking them too.
Yes, ma'am. माधवी दीदी बहुत रुला दिया. ये recording बंद करो श्रेया.
I'll stop the record.